Welcome to episode 5 of the Veteran to Veteran podcast. I'm your host, Cole. Before we hop into the introductions, I'm going to talk about some quick pre-episode notes that you guys might want to know about. First things first, listener discretion advisory. This podcast gets pretty real. There's quite a lot of language in this one. It's one of my better friends from the military, so like I've said in previous podcasts, the filter kind of comes off. We're sitting around having some whiskey, having some bourbon, and the filter comes off. But with that being said, this one does talk about death and killing. So if you're okay with listening to that, the language really shouldn't bother you. As far as any sound issues, there really are none. However, there is a lot of tapping on the table. I apologize. I'm going to try and work on getting an actual stand that will clamp down onto the table. Right now, with the way that the mic stand is, any vibrations that go through the tabletop is reverberated into the microphone and is audible in the recording, unfortunately. So I'm working on that. I didn't think that was going to be a problem because of how solid the table was that we were recording on, but it's there. So I apologize in advance. I hope you guys can look past that and actually listen to the podcast, because it's really good, but it's different than any previous podcast just because of some of the content that we talk about. Also, I wanted to say that I'm sorry for the long gap of episodes, or the gap in between episodes. I did the last one like right before my annual training with the National Guard, my 2 weeks of training in the summer. So really like a week or two before annual training, I couldn't get anything scheduled. And then it's taken me a few weeks after annual training to get anything scheduled. And I've been trying to get our guest today locked down for a recording session for a few months now. And just with how busy he is, he's got multiple jobs. And they're all pretty demanding and time consuming. So it's been a hard time getting him on. But I'm really happy that we finally got him on, and hopefully now that we're getting this one out, hopefully I can keep pumping him out with some level of regularity and consistency. So fingers crossed on that. We'll get into the introductions. Today's guest is, like I said before, one of my best friends, probably my best friend from my time in the LURS. He was my first team leader that really brought me under his wing when I first showed up there. Not only is he a 12-year veteran of the U.S. Army, he's also a currently serving law enforcement officer. The names of his departments that he's, the one that he's currently working for and the ones that he's worked for in the past, I'm going to go through and redact all of those so that he's not going to represent himself any less than absolutely professional. In this episode, he talks about a lot of stuff, so we're going to redact those just so he can. That's out of respect for him as well as his department. So there's that. But not only is he a veteran of 2 services, he is a recipient of his department's Medal of Valor, which is a really big deal. We talk about that in the podcast and what got him that medal. And more importantly than all that, he is a father and a husband, and he's just an all-around stellar guy. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. And without further ado, here it is, episode 5 of the Veteran to Veteran podcast with Branson Eber. So a lot of this shit I don't even know about you. Like, I don't know your whole backstory and shit. So this will be a learning experience for me. So why don't you tell me and the 30 people that are going to watch this, let's see, your life, upbringing, growing up, and then what led to joining the military, and if you had any family members or friends or people that you looked up to that were military, inspirations and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. So, I'm originally from a small town in northern Cass County. It's called 12 Mile. Not to be confused with 8 Mile. Everyone always does that shit. It's fucking 12 Mile. Real small town farming community. 4th of July, we shove dirt bike motors and lawnmowers and race them around a track at the park. Real redneck shit. Mom, dad divorced, moved to Brookston, which is in White County, and I was there up until I was 18 when I came back home to Cass County, and I've been here since. I enlisted when I was 17, and that was a more of a disciplinary thing, I guess. My dad's been in and out of the military in different branches for a long time, and And I had it in my mind that I was going to go into the military regardless, but I wanted to do it on my terms. That didn't happen. So at 17, I was, I guess, forced to enlist by my parents, and I did. Went to boot camp and infantry school, and went to an infantry unit for 2 months before I tried out for the LURS, and rode out the rest of my time in the LURS. So,
how much time did you end up doing in the LURS?
A decade.
Total.
10 years. 10 years.
Somewhere around there.
And as far as family goes, my stepdad, he was a medic. Of course, my dad, he's been in a few different branches, a few different roles. He was actually in the LURS for a few years. Had a grandpa who's in the Air Force and during Vietnam, and his plane was like they were on their way. He was a heavy equipment operator, and something happened. They turned him back around, and he didn't have to end up going. My other grandpa, he was my step-grandpa. Of course, he was my grandpa. He was a Marine in Vietnam. He was a tanker, got his leg blown off. He's a pretty tough dude. And then my great-grandpa. My great-grandpa was in the Navy, and he was at Pearl Harbor when Pearl Harbor went down. So
wow.
That was pretty intense. He only talked to me about it one time, and it's pretty crazy talking about, like how low the Japs are flying in or whatever. And he said you see dudes shooting at planes with Thompsons because they're flying that fucking low. And it's pretty wild. And of course, in 2016, I got to go out to Hawaii for EIB, and I was there. Where he was at.
That'd be a trip.
And the U that they flow through was that's out where we were doing our lanes and shit. So that was pretty surreal just to be able to stand there and like look out to the U. And I took a bunch of pictures. And I was like, damn.
Thinking about how you're standing like close to where he was when all that shit was going down.
Yeah, for real, man. And it it was pretty, it's pretty surreal. Of course, you talk to all the guys out there, and they're like, we fucking hate it here, dude. We're trapped on this fucking island. There's nothing to do. Everything is ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
And you should have known it was expensive. Us going out there, as me and another dude from the unit, we get like fucking $3,500 in per diem or some shit. So we're like trying to not spend as much money as possible, So, yeah.
So when you came in, so you didn't do airborne for a while, right?
Oh, dude, yeah, I got fucked for a while.
So you didn't initially come into the Guard to join the LURS?
Correct.
You went somewhere else and then what, heard about him? Or?
Well, I knew about it from my dad. My dad kept saying, you got to go to LURS, got to go to LURS, got to go to LURS. And I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for a tryout. And I found a tryout, and I went.
So they do it a lot different. They did it a lot different back then than how they do it now. Where you can just come in and sign up, and then you're just in the process. Yeah, no, these were full-blown tryouts. We did a PT test, and then we they had us run the obstacle course. I shit the bed on my PT test hard. I don't know why. I don't know what it was. And I remember freaking out, and I'm like, I'm such a failure. My dad's going to disown me, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I obviously passed, but it's like, that 270 threshold, I didn't hit that. I'm like, I'm such a fucking failure. And then we went to the obstacle course, and like I blew through that. I was the first one done by a long shot. Like, the closest guy was like 2 minutes behind me, so I smoked that thing, and I'm like, all right, a little bit of redemption. And then you go to the board, which they had 3 guys there, and the only one I remember was Barlow, and not the officer Barlow, another Barlow. He was there long before you. I remember him sitting there. There was 3 of them on a mock board or a mock bird. And they ask you a bunch of questions, and you're snapped up and shit. And I remember him asking me, because he was silent the entire time. He looks at me and goes, have you ever had your ass kicked? And I said, nope. And he said, okay, we'll change that. And I'm like, okay. I like how it's like, if you just answered it like, no. That sounds like you've never been in a fight, but when you say, nope. It sounds like...
Yeah,
like people have tried. It has not happened.
Yeah. So and of course I went into it, and it was definitely a humbling experience, because my first drill with the LURS was it was like a 3-week AT in Fort Knox, and it was like all of the degrees hot. Like it was fucking miserable. It was 3 weeks, and it was with Andy was the det leader, and. Oh, he hated me. I never knew why, dude, but he hated me. At one point, he had told me, like, look, dude, you should probably just leave because no one likes you. Once you hear it, I'm like, what the fuck? What is this all about? Well, so long and behold, he gets a flat tire in his Explorer out there, and there's like, dude, it was a pretty big RASP class, dude. There was like 14 of us, and like no one knew how to change a tire except for me, or maybe no one wanted to change his tire. I don't know, but I changed his tire, or whatever, and the trans section leader, old Chuck Evans, he comes walking up. He goes, "Hey, motherfucker, you want to be on my team?" And I was like, "Nah, I came here for a recon team, not for yours." He says, "Elevate, motherfucker." So, that's what he told everyone to do. So, I'm sitting there doing push-ups, and he's sitting there shaking his head, big old chaw in his mouth. And old Chuck Evans, man, I ended up going to his team, actually, which was the trans section, and I ended up getting forced off of his team to a recon team. PT was like really big in the unit back then, and I shot over a 300, and it was like, nope, you're on a recon team. It's like, fuck. So, and yeah, and then from there I went to a team.
Yeah, my first that interview. So when I interviewed, I wasn't actually in the Army anymore, and I was in so many fire processes, and I had interviewed so many times over the last like year before that I took interviews like really seriously. And I don't know how professional they typically were, but I showed up like it was more than business CAD. Like I showed up like very official looking. Yeah. And this is at the Christmas party for 2017. Yeah, it would have been 2017, and interviewed. And I had Mike, Brad Bunnell, and Granny. And so I just see like 3 scrolled out dudes, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, like, really? And then see Brad with his star in his wings. I'm like, God damn.
I'm not worthy.
Yeah. These guys are serious. Yeah. And then mine went well, though. I had a great ERB to back myself up. So, the like just prior enlisted helps, but then having scout experience.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Yeah, so
you had some solid dudes there to do your interview. I mean, they're
nobody was trying to fuck me there.
Right.
Nobody was like looking to poke holes in anything.
Yeah.
And their big thing was like, you're going to be up for promotion faster because of your time on active, but 5
years later.
But hey, I'm getting to a point here. But they're like, are you okay with not getting promoted, because there's a lot of guys who've been here a long time before you that we would like to promote first. And I was like, I don't give a shit. Like
8 years later.
Yeah, 8 years later. 2 years later.
Yeah.
So, I feel like I didn't have to wait too long, but then they kind of like hinted at like, if we promote you faster, people are probably going to be a little pissed because there's so many people here with like 7-8 years at least that are still specialists and corporals that haven't gotten their 5. They're like, so if it happens, are you okay with it? If it doesn't happen, are you okay with it? And nobody ended up being salty that I know of from it happening. But
yeah, I mean,
everybody says that they feel like I've been there longer than I've actually been there. So yeah. I guess I don't know if that's
and a lot of that just comes
thing.
with the territory, though. I mean, that place is very it's very close knit. A lot of people call us a cult. Because the people that go there generally they don't leave, and that's why that's why there's never promotions. And if the people do leave, it's because they're promoted out. They're forced out. Generally you stay there. Everyone's close knit, and of course there's cliques within that close knit community, and the bro club. Those guys look out for their own, and at the time that I was there, all of them were in, they were in top tiers. So what they wanted went, and that's just how it was, and you just went with it.
Yeah, and I feel like we should probably address like some of these acronyms. So LRS is long range surveillance, which has lineage and history back to the LRPs, which was the legendary long-range patrol dudes from Vietnam. Yep. And then RASP. The active duty version of RASP is your selection for the Ranger Regiment, but in the National Guard, because this unit has lineage directly to the Ranger Regiment. They adopted that, and it's instead, because we're not a Ranger unit, we're a recon unit. It's Recon Assessment and Selection Program, which now they've again had to change it because we've been allowed to keep it, but now it's like Recruit Assessment and Selection because we're not Recon anymore.
Yeah, but it's soft. It's not what it used to be.
It's about to start kicking. We're supposed to have like 20 dudes or more in RASP.
That's insane.
By January.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, because my RASP class was the last kind of big one where we had like 12 people in it. And then ever since all of us got out, it's been like 2 or 3 people, maybe 4 or 5 max. But then by the time those 5 are there, the first 2 that have been there the longest time, they're getting out. So then it only stays at like 3 people. And it has gotten soft because they just like sneak off and they're out of sight, out of mind. But then when you have 20 dudes, you ain't staying out of sight.
No, not at all, dude.
And we got it a little bit. We didn't get it that bad, or at least I didn't get it that bad, because
really,
they'd be quizzing us on stuff and be like, what are the 8 troop leading procedures? And I just like kept raising my hand like, not fucking you.
Yep.
We know you fucking know it.
Yeah, they couldn't fuck you on that. So they fucked you on not having your own issued gear.
Dude, don't get me fucking started.
Oh, you don't have this? Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. That's 50 push-ups for each item I give you.
And 50 sit-ups.
Yeah.
This is your first day being here? You don't even have a uniform?
And that's the kind of shit,
So the story, we gotta address these things so they're not like subliminal or anything. I guess I won't blast his name out there, the worst officer that I've ever experienced in my entire time in the military, which is almost a decade now. My very first day in the National Guard, I showed up without a uniform because I didn't have any issued uniforms. I trashed all of them. And all I had were like high-speed cry uniforms.
Gucci.
Yeah. And so I showed up in civilians, and we're going to a range, and then right before going to that range, this officer who was in charge of RAS, because they didn't want him to be in charge of anything else because he sucks so much. And
1000%.
He asks me and all the other RASP kids, well, he pretty much is directly looking at me, and he's like, do you not have any range gear? I'm like, no, sir. And he's like, oh, well, I'll let you use some of mine. I was like, well, sir, they said that we could just borrow some of the guys' stuff out there. He's like, no. You're going to borrow some of my stuff. And he gets in his car and starts handing us stuff. It's like, here's one knee pad. Here's the other knee pad. Here's a helmet.
Yeah, he already knew where that was fucking
Here's
going.
a pen. Here's a piece of paper. It's like, for each one of those items, you owe me 50 push-ups and 50 sit-ups. It's like, you fucking serious, dude? I just got here. How, these guys have been here 8 months and still don't have issued gear yet. How am I supposed to? So, that was like 2 minutes after I met him. I was like, this dude is the worst officer of all time. Besides everything else, besides how stupid that is, that's not his lane.
Not at all.
It's not an officer's lane to be laying out disciplinary punishments.
That guy always made it his lane, though.
he would find that lane.
Yeah. I got nothing nice to say.
But anyway, so when did you actually go to airborne and air assault? Like, how many years in was that?
So I had been in the unit 3 years before I went to jump school. And then I went to air assault 2 years later, and rappel master in 2018 or 2019.
When did you get
I think 2018 I went to rappel master.
When did you get your first Governor's 20 tab? Because Branson Eber has like 8 of them.
I don't have that many. I think I got my first tab in 26. Well, my first tabs in 2016. I think 2016, 2017.
So 5 years in.
There's 2 of them back there.
Yeah. And when did you get your corporal?
2016.
So, what about 5 years in? You're a double-stacked corporal with a Gov 20 tab?
Oh, no. In 2016, dude. 2016, I had been in for 8 years already. I enlisted in 2008.
Oh, so you got out in 2018?
I got out in 2020.
Yeah. So you're in for 12 years.
I was in for 12 years, yeah, but
Yeah,
by
you said
eight by 8 years. Well, I was in the Lurs for 10 years.
Oh.
I was in the Lurs for a
I
decade,
gotcha.
but I've been in 2 years before that. So
Okay.
whole 17-year-old, the delayed entry, all that shit. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, based on everything you knew about the Lurs, did you have any kind of preconceived notions of what to expect or what you were looking to
Honestly,
get out
I
of
mean,
it?
it was one of those things that you just kind of knew going into it that you're gonna get your dick kicked in. I mean, you were gonna know your place and you were gonna earn your place, and if you didn't earn your place, you weren't gonna be there very long. And that's the nature of the beast, and they're able to do that because it's a volunteer thing. So you had to work to be there. And it was one of those things that once you're known and you're accepted within the community, then I mean you're good. You know.
How long did it take you to get accepted?
A while, actually. Because it was one of those things, like I said, at that time it was the so-called the bro club that was running it, and the team I was on, which I'm still friends with all of those guys, we were considered the black sheep of the unit. We did our own things. We always did things as a team. We didn't split out and go hang out with other people or go out with other people. We stuck to us, and that's just how it was. My team leader, he was a hard fuck. He was. Link didn't piss around. Of course, Cree was my ATL, and Holloman was my senior scout. And then, Blue and Pope, they aren't there anymore. And then, I came in as a ARTO and then moved to SO, and Brad trained me for SSO, and I, moved into that slot. And then by the time I left their team and went to my next team with Clayton, I was his ATL, and that kind of was it. That's what kind of did it. So, and I think that they kind of realized it was one of those things that I think once, us dudes and the team Black Sheep, once we kind of split up, people kind of really realized like the worth there. I mean, they knew, but they didn't acknowledge. And once everyone kind of split, it was kind of like, okay, these guys know what they're doing.
I think I don't know, a lot of people think that people are going to be there for forever or something. They think that integrity that exists in the unit, these people at a certain point in time, they're going to be there forever. And then when they start leaving, people kind of see the value.
Well, I mean, and I was, talking about the forever thing. I think I was one of them that they thought I was going to be there forever. I think when I started really talking about it, they were like, yeah, whatever. He's talking about it, but he'll re-enlist. And then when I didn't, I think it pissed some people off. But it's just I was at a point in time that it was time to go. I had other things to prioritize in my life, and
I didn't really see it on active the way that I've seen it in this unit, but I think it's probably because people are so much closer to each other.
Yeah.
Because there's a sense of it on active duty of when you get out, you're kind of turning your back on your dudes, but once they're out, then it's just like, okay, he's out. Like, not gonna have any ill will towards somebody,
right.
But people seem to like really take it personally in this unit.
Yeah.
Dude's getting out, which is kind of
it's crazy,
surprising.
Even people you wouldn't think it would come from, it does, and you're just like, damn, dude, for real, like, what the fuck? We were close.
Yeah.
So
it's shitty, but I think that is just a testament to how close everybody is initially. Back there whispering and stuff.
Yeah. Talking about gay shit.
So in that, do you have not like the best memory or craziest or best or worst or any of that stuff, but is there any time like in RASP or in that process where you'd say that you're earning your place there that stands out as like a crazy or shitty moment?
Oh, it didn't come out in RASP. No, I didn't earn my place in RASP at all.
Well, no, I mean like, but RASP is where you're getting your shit kicked in all the time. Is there a specific time that stands out, or
like I said, it was just the. I mean, it sucked. I mean, fuck, we ran a mock mission in RASP, and I was in the surveillance site with this dude Gavin O'Brien. And both of us, dude, we zonked out. we both fell right the fuck asleep at this surveillance site. It's like, holy shit. And I think Andy found us, and that was just like another strike, It's just like, God damn it. And but no, that moment that stuck out to me was him saying, no one likes you, no one wants you here, you need to leave. And at that moment I was like, fuck you, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm going to be something here, and I was. So, and you know, and I actually did get to tell him that years later. We were, I was driving some dudes home from a place, and I was driving his Jeep, actually, and we were talking about it, and I brought it up that he said that, and he looked over at me just bewildered. He's like, I said that to you? I was like, oh yeah, motherfucker, you did. You were my push for a long time here because you told me, and you didn't even know me, that I was worthless, and I wasn't okay with that because I wasn't in, you know, a training capacity and, you know, getting restructured and refitted down in Fort Benning, Georgia. I mean, I was here. I was in a place that it's not supposed to be like this. It is, but it's not. And I felt like you personally attacked me, and I was like, okay, dude, like, fuck you. Now I'm going to ball up on you, and I'm gonna prove you wrong. And I did. And he was like, man, I've always liked you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, dude, dog, we're cool, man. Like, I got no ill feelings towards you now. And I was actually on his team for a brief time. My first combat night jump, actually, I was on his team, and it was a Blackhawk. And I had all the radio shit and spare batteries. I mean, I had a heavy-ass fucking ruck, dude. It was easily over 100 pounds.
Yeah, RTOs aren't doing missions with rucks less than 100 pounds.
Yeah, dude. So I'm sitting there, and I'm, you know, we're in the clamshell or whatever, and he can tell that I'm kind of like, I'm off or whatever. He's like, you all right, dude? And I was like, you know what, Andy? Like, yeah, but this is like my first combat night jump, man. And he's like, oh, man, dude, this is what it's all about. That heavy-ass ruck, that rifle on your side, this is fucking thug life, dude. And I was just like, fuck yeah, let's go. And just the way he said it, you know, the tone, I wish I could replicate it, but just in that moment, coming from him, you know, what he had said to me at one point in time to this time, it was like, all right, dude, let's go. I'll follow you. And, yeah, we jumped. And I hit hard as fuck, but it was pretty cool.
Do you have we'll get into those questions we were talking about earlier. Do you have a best and worst moment? Is there a moment that stands out where you're like, damn, this is like really badass? And on the other end, is there a moment where you're like, there's probably many, but like, wow, this really, really sucks?
Yeah, I still think my entire experience with the, and if, you know what, this is probably going to piss some people off, and I don't really give a shit. Probably my worst moment and worst experience was cross-leveling to the 76th to deploy. That was fucking terrible. You know, I was driving all the way up to Angola. Well, it was Fort Wayne for a little while, but their home station was in Angola. And, of course, these guys, you know, everyone knew who the freaking Lurs was, dude. Everyone knows who the Lurs guys are. And you guys think you're fucking special. You guys think you're fucking Mavericks. It's like, yeah, you know, we do. We are. Step up. You know, what's up? And it was just envy, you know, because these guys would be sucking, you know, walking places or whatever down in Atterbury, and they'd look up in the sky and they see us fucking hard dicks coming down out of a helicopter or, you know, a 17 or a 130 or whatever. And they were jealous, you know. But they treated us like shit. And they really started treating us like shit when we started doing traditional infantry skills and stomping their asses. And that really irritated them. And at one point, but they were, you know, apparently there were things that were like, oh, we're not going to, you know, we're going to keep you guys. You guys aren't going to go back. And we're like, well, this is terrible. Like, everyone's like, oh, we're getting the fuck out. We're not staying here. This is fucking horrible, you know? And luckily for us, we had someone in a really high place, and it was like, nah, they're going back. So we went back. And it was great.
What about the best?
You know, I don't think that there's any single moment that I can single out. There were just so many different things that I got to experience and I got to do that most people don't. And again, it comes with the, you know, the community. And don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to misconstrue anything. You know, we're a bunch of SF dudes running around or anything like that. You know, we're not. But it's just different. You know, we lived by the work hard, play hard. And we made sure that we did the first part to the fullest extent so we could have, even if it was just a taste of the second part, you know. But really my best experience was just being with real fucking men. Dudes that wanted to work hard. Dudes that legitimately cared about you, that knew about your family. You know, it was you 6 guys, and I mean, you had other friends in the unit, but you 6 guys, we all knew who each other's wives' names were. We knew each other's kids. We knew how old they were, and it was nice to be able to have those conversations with them, you know, and it's just different. It's just different. It's something that you don't find, you know, anywhere in you know, traditional Army or, you know, these bullshit infantry units that are running around in the state. You don't find that. You find dudes that genuinely want to be there. They look forward to this. This is a vacation for them from their everyday life to be able to go for, you know, 3 days, 4 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and be able to be with these like-minded people that have the drive and have the, you know, the sense of service that you do. So
I don't think I've ever seen another unit where it's like, when they say, give me 1 guy or give me 2 guys, typically it takes a few seconds for anybody to get up. And then this is like the one place where it's like, if they say give me 2 guys, it's like 20 dudes are coming over there.
Yeah.
So whatever task that they're, you know, if it's 2 guys just moving stuff, it was going to take them 10 minutes. You have it done in a minute.
Yeah.
Because everybody else hops up. And
Yeah.
it's just like, people want to work hard because they're just hard workers, but they're also working towards the opportunity to play hard. And I've also never seen people play harder than this unit does.
Yeah.
We've got some pictures.
Different breed, yeah. Yeah. Different breed, man. Yeah,
falling asleep on tables and going to coolers of bars. And
wrestling Marines, beating their asses. True story, it happened.
Just Marines.
But yeah, it's just different, man. And that's one of those things that, you know, here I am, you know, I'm only 6 months out now, but, you know, I've kind of had these moments where I'm like, fuck, man. Like, did I screw up? You know, but then I come back to reality, you know, I hear stories. It's like, yeah, we did nothing for a week and it fucking sucked. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I'm good, fam. You know?
I do think it has like a subculture. Like every branch has their own subculture. The military as a whole is its own subculture.
Well, that's a fact.
And then each branch has its own subculture. And then each MOS has its own subculture. And then it's like down to the units. And the LURS, I think, is a very unique one. And even our new commander, I'm not going to drop names too much, but our new commander, who I think came from the 76th.
That's a fact.
Has kind of talked about why everybody hates the LURS. And he's like, it's just because they don't get to do the shit that we get to do here.
Yeah.
They don't get the schools that we get.
Nope.
They don't get to do the cool spies, fries, rappelling,
Jumping. Period.
Yeah. And it is just, they hate us because they ain't us. But
the laxness on the lanes, I mean, I don't know. It's just, you know, and that was another thing too. You don't find it very often that you've got guys within the unit. You know, the majority of the guys that are in the unit they're in public service. You know, they come from different parts of the state, but you've got cops, you got firefighters, you got medics.
What percentage of the unit comes from out of state?
At one point, there was a handful that were flying from like out west.
Even now, we still have a shit ton of people from Kentucky.
Yeah.
Guy from Texas, guy from Virginia,
Yep.
all coming to Indiana
for
once
this
a month.
Unit.
That are turning down promotions to stay in the unit.
Yeah.
Like, just that kind of dedication to stay in a unit is pretty unheard of, at least on the conventional side of the military.
Well, and I mean, and that should speak volumes itself, and that's the testimony to what the place is and what the brotherhood is.
Yeah. Let's bring LURS back.
Bring LURS back.
Let's get our heads out of our asses.
Bring LURS back so Branson can re-enlist.
Yeah. So for people who might be in a scout platoon or might think that they're interested in going some kind of like dismounted recon, from your perspective, give the viewer or listener an idea of like what does a typical LURS mission look like?
Not a Calf Scout mission.
No. We don't like dudes. What does a typical LURS mission look like?
So,
LURS and Scout Platoon missions are similar. They're very, very similar. It's just usually distance and time in the field that changes, but tactics and everything are similar. So the LURS units are all gone, but if you're going to a Scout Platoon, this would kind of give you an idea of what to expect on mission.
Yeah, so generally what happens is you'll have your time set aside that you go into the ISOFAC and do your planning process, and that would be generally an entire weekend. And
the LURS plans their own missions?
Yeah, 1,000% at battalion level, like bosses. Yeah, and that
I've been in during Scout Platoon with like route planning, radio plans, radio windows.
Yeah.
Shit like that comes down to the platoon level.
Yeah, see that the RTO would plan all of that along with the assistance of the RTO, and then you start talking,
like SSO is doing route planning.
You're doing your route planning, and you're having to do, you do your MACU, you do your various levels of your transparency sheets on top of your map, and you were showing your vegetation, your water. You were showing your main roads, your linear danger areas. You were mapping all of that out, and then if you had a flight plan, you were doing the tentative flight plan around, the area that you were in. You were making up your rally points, your point of no return. You were doing all of that. So, as the senior scout, which is where I spent the majority of my time. That was my job. That was my master's degree, was doing that, and my portion of the briefing. It was kind of long. Because you're going through maps and you're showing everything that you've done, and that was really interesting to me. That was really fun. I never was like, God, I fucking hate planning. I liked it because if I got my shit done, then I had time to look over everyone else's stuff, just to be able to, I don't know, maybe throw some of that into my brain to have that knowledge. Because the next step for me at that point was ATL, so I was kind of looking at the ATL and what he was doing and asking him questions and trying to get that knowledge. So when I jumped into the ATL position, I had a pretty good grasp on it. So you go through your planning process, you pitch your plan, you get the yay or the nay, and then for us, the National Guard, unless we were doing it, during AT. Your next drill, it was mission time, and you were going. You were getting there early on a Friday. You were getting everything. You were drawing equipment. You're getting everything laid out. You're double checking your guys. Everyone's getting it packed. And then if you've got to jump, we're loading on at Seymour or Columbus or wherever we were jumping from, and then we would jump into mission and start we'd start it from there. You get everyone together, turn your parachutes in. Senior scout, get your azimuth. You take off. Push into the wood line, sit down, and chill out for a few minutes. Hang out, collect everyone together, and you're doing SILs. You do SILs complete, SSO, get your freaking azimuth, got it, TL confirms it, off you go. And that was really the start of the mission. So,
and then these typically aren't lightweight rucks, typically heavy-ass rucks.
Yeah, you're at lightest, you've probably got a 75 or 80-pound ruck, and that's completely realistic. That's probably the lightest you've got, and that's just on your back.
Yeah, and then LURS being what it is because it's long-range surveillance. Like Scout Platoon, this is even like in the FMs too. Scout Platoons are typically battalion-level reconnaissance asset that will push out, what does it say, like 3 to 5K from the battalion.
At scout level?
Yeah.
Yeah, roughly.
And then LURS is like 5 to 10 miles or some shit.
Well, yeah. It actually can be a lot farther than that. A lot farther than that without resupply for 30 days.
Yeah. So like self-sustaining, so like packing water filtration systems. Mm-hmm. I've heard of dudes like while they're conducting surveillance on a site, on an objective, they're sneaking onto the objective to steal food and sneaking back into their surf site. But yeah, this shit's no joke.
Yeah, you can be in place for up to 30 days according to FM without resupply. So yeah, it's no joke.
but go on with from initiation of like movement to.
Yeah. So once you push in and you get your azimuth and you start moving, you've got your, as the SSO, you're setting up your checkpoints. And at one of those points, you may do a map check, at a short halt or a long halt. Well, a short halt. Once you meet your long halt, everyone's going to ruck flop. You're going to set up security via claymores, because you're going to end up sending out a leader's recon, because you're getting into your objective. You're getting into where the objective's at. So you'll send out your leader's recon. They'll push out and they'll go surveil an area or cloverleaf an objective and find out tentatively where they would want the surveillance site to be. They'll come back once we get security back up again. We'll pull our claymores, and then your surveillance team, which is made up of your ATL, your SSO, and your SO, will push out to the serve site, because the ATL is on the leader's recon, so he knows roughly where you're going to be at, where you're going to go. And then your TL, your RTO, and your ARTO will push off to the hide site. Note, we don't know where each other are at. And we do that for a reason. In case one of us gets blown out, we can't, even under, God forbid, even under, torture, we won't be able to tell where our other team members are at. So.
And then serve site is basically... It's called a serve site, but it's a surveillance site, conducting surveillance on the
that's
objective.
Your eyes on your objective, yeah.
And
a lot of times, people I think when they think about this stuff, and this kind of goes both ways. Thinking long range surveillance, you're not necessarily like freaking 800 meters, 1,000 meters off your objective. Sometimes you're fucking close. Especially if you're doing urban shit or you're watching an urban area. I mean, you're not as far away.
Urban shit's super dope.
Yeah, we've got some pretty good stories doing that shit too. But you're not as far away as what you think. Other times you are. It just depends on where you're at. It depends on what God's given you to work with at that point. I can tell you that I never fucking, in my entire career doing this, I never dug a hole and got in a fucking hole.
You never done a subsurface?
I never went subsurface, not one time.
Not for training or anything?
Nope. Never did it. Never had to.
Consider yourself lucky.
Yeah, never had to.
That shit sucks.
Yep.
I've never done it for mission, but I've done it for training.
I mean, I've dug the shit, but actually in any kind of capacity, never done it. Never had to.
Yeah, there's never... We've always found a way to avoid doing it because nobody wants to do it.
1,000%. Yeah.
Because you're supposed to, like, we did it in the daytime, and we didn't even do it the proper way. We did it like an easy way, and it still took us like 6 hours to do it in the daytime. So think about, in the nighttime, under night vision, digging a hole while maintaining noise and light discipline, because you're on your surveillance point, so you're close to the objective, trying to not get compromised. So noise discipline is a huge deal, and you have to dig a hole. What did you say, like 3 feet? Mm-hmm. 3 feet down. Yep. You got to do something with the dirt, so you're bringing duffel bags with you, loading up duffel bags full of dirt, which is heavy as shit. Yep. And then you have to take that to a place where, if it was seen, they're not going to think that there's a subsurface hide in this area. So you're taking it 100 meters away, dumping it, coming back, all while not getting compromised.
And building your cover, and
which
by the way, get into it. You start transplanting.
Real, like, that's a shit ton of bags of dirt.
Yeah, dude.
That's like, you're not doing that once or twice. You're doing that like 50 times.
Meaning, and getting into the transplanting thing, I mean, we did that too. What
do you mean transplanting?
So transplanting, digging up plants, essentially, and reemplacing them where we are at. We would do that.
Yeah, we would take like the E-tool and like skim the top layer of veg off, like grass.
Right.
Set that off to the side, and then dig everything else out, dump that somewhere else, and then, sticks or thicker pieces of wood we could lay across, and then cover it back up with a base layer of dirt, and then take that top layer of veg and just put it back down on top of it and pat it down. And then you have like your, what would you say, like your serve your surveillance hole or whatever, and then your like blowout hole.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, so going subsurface, you're always going to have an area for quick egress, especially if you're taking contact from the front. You're going to have an area that you're going to get thrown out. Your rucks are always in the back, and generally you've got, in that capacity of a surveillance site, you're going to have two guys laying facing towards objective, other guy backwards, and you rotate.
There you go.
But he's your rear security guy, and he's the guy to throw the door off and start chucking rucks if shit hits the fan.
Would you guys do it like this, where we would do it, have one guy, like eyes on glass.
One scribe.
Yeah. Yep. One guy recording, and then the other guy's basically on food or rest or whatever.
Food, yeah.
And then
depending on how long the mission was too,
yeah.
How long we were going though, because that third guy would probably be security. But
then that's your life.
Yeah,
and your ass is living in that hole until you're told to leave.
But like I said, we didn't have to do it because a lot of times we would make do with what we had. I mean, God, I remember that I found this one freaking sticker bush, dude. It was so big. It was fucking massive. And I started trimming stuff away and pushing things back. And what I ended up doing was finding sticks that were like this wide or that big around, and they were wide. And I would break them off, and I would use those to push up. So I'd make them long enough that I could push through, push up, and then stick that down. So it basically looked like an old mine shaft in there. And that was where we laid. I pushed everything out of the way so we could get in there and lay. And then I just threw something together real quick with like paracord and sticks to make a door, but I put stickers on the outside of it so it latched itself, and your rear security guy would just sit there at the back. The rucks were all here, and then you had two guys laying forward. Just threw some Yeti net at the front, and I found this big limb that had fallen down. It was like a top of a tree, and I drug that out in front of it, and it looked natural, and you couldn't see in it. You had no idea dudes are in there.
It's really dope when you actually see it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. I saw pictures of it.
Yeah, that or like subsurface. We actually, when we did that subsurface, we had other units like hey, come over here, just walk this way, and they just walked right on top of it and had no idea that it was even there. And then they'd be like, what's going on? And they're like, you just walked over some of our guys that are in the ground right there. Like, it's really badass when you see it like that.
Yeah. I used to take pictures of them, and just to, I don't know, beat our own dicks or whatever. You take pictures of the area where it was at, and you'd show it to them and be like, find us where we at. And they'd look, and, I think I had maybe once or twice that someone was like, they were like right there, and I gave it to them. But other than that, you wouldn't get found. And that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
That's what you wanted. Because you got to remember, you're not able to see what they are looking at from where you're at, because most of the time you're doing it in the dark. You know what I mean? So that in itself is a skill set to be able to, it's art, to be able to do that and to make it look as naturally as possible and hide bodies with fucking equipment in the dark, so when it gets daylight out, everything that's in front of you is not able to see you there.
Yeah, it's badass.
So you're fucked.
Yeah, because your job as a ground reconnaissance unit is to not get into firefights. Your job is to not get shot at, not shoot at people, unless you're the actual OG Indiana Rangers and you're just setting in ambushes on a daily basis and stacking bodies.
Yeah.
But we aren't doing that. We're trying to not get in
secondary
gunfights.
alert missions. Yeah.
But
ambush, sabotage, snatch and grab.
Do you have a lot of time in the hide, or is most of your time, you said, was probably in surf sites?
All of my time was in the surf sites.
Well, so for the other half of this, if somebody's out there listening that's thinking about trying out for their scout platoon or whatever, the other half of it, if you end up as what was it, the TL? Yeah, TL.
The TL, the RTO, and the
ARTO.
Yeah, that job sucks. You don't want that job.
Yeah, I loved that job.
Oh,
I was an RTO.
You don't like to work.
I was an RTO, and dude, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. So as the RTO, you have to RTO, ARTO, your shit's heavy because you're carrying everything that pretty much everybody else is carrying with batteries to a point of redundancy. And those batteries aren't light. And then you're basically moving as one big element until you get to that leader's recon position or whatever. And then that's where you're kind of splitting off. The surf site guys are going out to their surf site. Hide site guys are breaking off and finding a good concealed area, because they're not trying to get caught either, but they're several hundred meters farther away from the objective.
Where they can get radio reception.
Yeah, because basically the guys on the surf site are relaying everything that they're seeing back to the guys in the hide site, who are relaying it because they have a more powerful radio back however far away the command team is. They're relaying back to them what the guys in the surf side are seeing. But that lifestyle is a cozy one, and you aren't having to go as far. You're carrying a heavier ruck, but you're not having to go as far. And then when you actually get into your spot, it was like pull out a whoopee and snuggle up and just sit with the radio right on your face. As long as you're staying awake, which I've fallen asleep. That's not a good deal.
Unless you fucking can't get calm either, because that happens a lot. A lot of your decisions is literally based on not what's comfortable, is where you can get fucking comms.
Well, I didn't suck, so I always had comms.
Yeah.
My favorite, this is what's so cool about the dudes in the recon units, is like how much everybody would geek out. Like you said that you geek out about the SSO shit, route planning, all that stuff. Like that's what your master's degree is in. For us RTO nerds, this is like the same thing. And once I started learning way more advanced antennas and stuff, it was so cool not being in a normal infantry unit where it's just like, you know your job, you learn your job, you do your fucking job, you're out of here. And when you get into your surf site or your hide site, you don't have to ask permission or ask what should I do. You just start doing your fucking job. And so for me, as a senior RTO dude, coming in there with the 150, this is a radio it's high frequency, so it has to have a grounding stake, but it also has to have a minimum kind of signal. So like on your phone, if you
score,
it scores. So it's like 20. You have to have a score 20 to be able to send text, and like 50 to be able to send voice or something like that. Something I can't remember exactly, but
I think it fluctuates on either side of that. Yeah.
But so it's like, think about it on your phone, like, if you have 2 out of 5 bars, you can send a text message, but you can't call anybody. So if you only have 1 bar, you ain't doing shit.
Yeah.
That radio is not doing anything. And then unless you have 4 bars, you can't call anybody.
Yep.
And so that's kind of how this radio was. So I liked omnidirectional tree antennas because I'm a nerd, and I think that's really cool. Like, I can pull out a computer, connect it to this radio, and I can send pictures of what those dudes are seeing on the objective through this fucking tree, through wood and leaves and shit. And I was just like taping the antenna, like the pronged end of the antenna, to a knife, electrical taping it, sticking the knife into the wood, and that tree's an antenna. Or you could do it with a building. You just find like metal structuring in the building and just just tape the antenna to that, and the entire building is an antenna. And
I got run one around a door frame.
That's where you get like really crazy, because you can actually, this is more nerd shit, I don't know if you ever like learned all these things, but
I didn't have any desire to do that.
You can do like spirals, you can do like X patterns or zigzags and stuff, and you can actually set a door up here and then make a huge antenna on the wall over here, and they actually will rebound off of each other and shoot out. And we've had guys get comms like to Korea, because like those HF radios are insanely powerful. Now, like with the really basic, simple, like run the wire out in that direction, because that's the azimuth that we have. Those antennas are only going to get you really low scores, but enough to work with typically. But when you get into like antenna theory and like the conditions of the atmosphere and learning how to bounce signal off of this atmosphere and shit, that's where it gets like really deep. I never got that deep into it, but that's why I nerd out about it. Is like, dude, this shit's crazy. You can send shit through trees and buildings, but but yeah, you just set up, and your job is just sitting there waiting on every hour you'd be getting a radio report from the guys in the surf site. Unless they saw something, then they'd call before that scheduled time. And then your job is just to write it down, type it up, and send it through the radio back to higher, and that's all your job is. Your job is just sitting there, sitting on the radio. So we would have me, my ARTO, and which is my assistant, and then the TL. We would just take turns, one guy on, the other 2 guys would just do whatever, eat, sleep, whatever, and just chill out. And we just talk, hang out. And God, that was a good life. I was carrying a heavy ass ruck, but then once you got there, you're like, okay, I'm here. No, like so many times I'd have like my my knife with that antenna taped to it, wrapped up And then that'd be on the top of my ruck, and right underneath that would be my whoopee. And it was like, boom, stick that in the tree, and whoopee. Yeah,
Right.
But, oh, man. So that would be the life and the day in the life of, like, an infantry recon guy, not a cav recon guy.
Yeah, because you guys suck.
Legit had to teach brigade-level cav assets how to do their job before.
Wannabes.
Sweet scout tabs, dude.
Yeah. Fag. Riding the baloney pony. Spurs or die.
Sweet Stetson fag.
Yeah. They asked us one time, they're like, hey, dude, want to go do the spur ride? And we just kind of looked around like, come on, we need to send someone. I don't know who it was. Somebody out. Yeah, we're good. We're not gay. None of us went.
So dumb. They can't be mad that they get ripped on the way that they do. I don't think that they get to rip on anybody else.
No. I mean, they're basically lurs.
You shut your fucking mouth. Okay, so we spent a lot of time talking about the military stuff because it's a military-focused podcast. But so you joined in 2008, got out 2020. When did you get into the law enforcement world?
2012. 2012, I got hired at
Full spiel.
I got hired at 21 in the sheriff's department in the county in which I'm from. I went to the academy in 2012 and came back and worked here for 4.5 years, and I left this county and went to another county, and I'm still there. I've been there for about 4.5 years.
So what all have you gotten to do there?
So I went to like some everything. I went to some like street survival school or some bullshit when I don't know. It was one of those things. It's like, oh, we want to make you feel special. Here, go to this. And I went to this, and it's like, this is fucking retarded. Now when I went to this county though, it was like fucking open season, dude. Like they were just, and I don't know. I mean, I have a great sheriff. I have a great administration. They're 1,000% for the boys, and it's great. So I went to instructor development almost right away when I went up there. I completed instructor development. I went through an Alexander Global Strategies course. It was a high-risk warrant course, which is great. I was a local guy here where I'm from. He used to work at the police department. He went off and started his own company, went through one of his courses. It was fucking phenomenal. It was a week long. And then I started going to all my schools. I went to firearms handgun instructor, firearms patrol rifle instructor, firearms shotgun instructor, basic sniper course, advanced observer sniper course, Colt armorers course. I went to some policing the teen brain. It's basically it's a new thing, a new program they put on for juveniles, which is an excuse for acting the way that you're acting, and we're not going to punish you, and it's bullshit. I don't really care about that one, but I started really getting heavily involved in the gun world, and it was pretty cool. So, been to a lot of training there.
Yeah, you seem like as passionate as you are about the LURS and all that stuff. You definitely seem like way more committed to a good department. If you could find a good department that was actually supportive of you and
yeah, well, and I mean, and you got to remember, it's my full-time job.
Yeah,
you know, if it was, if I was active duty and I was in a unit or I was part of an organization that I got to do the things that I enjoyed, I would be passionate about that as well, as would you. But it just so happened that I was allotted to be able to have my little niche, I guess, and it was great, because I shoot a lot. Handguns, rifles. I've always shot a lot. Especially when I worked in the county I live in, because they didn't give us a lot of ammo, so I had to buy a lot of my ammo, and I had to do a lot of my own training, because I mean you were lucky to shoot twice a year, which is fucking asinine. It's absolutely bullshit. But it paid off for me. I think it was 4 months. I think after I started in the county I work in, I was involved in my first police action shooting. It was 30 minutes into my shift. I was working day shift at the time, so it was actually 6:27 in the morning when it happened. There was a pursuit that had occurred because someone had kidnapped his daughter, some shitbag dad that had been in his daughter's life. Kidnapped her at knife point, drug her out of the house with a knife to her neck. She was at a friend's house and threw her in the car and told her he was going to kill her.
How old was this girl?
She was 14, and he was a career criminal. He ended up getting lit up in one county, and they chased him through 4 counties. And of course, I was headed to work, and as soon as I went on duty, my dispatcher told me kind of what was going on, and they weren't near our county. They were in Carroll County, but he had been monitoring it. So I'm like, all right. So I kept my portable on my person on our frequency, and I switched over to the county that it was in. I switched over to their frequency, and thankfully, our county's invested the money in buying basically the roads for the surrounding counties on our mapping system. So I was literally following this as this was happening. So I'm watching this and I'm hearing it, and I knew the way it was going to go. I don't know how I knew. It was just something inside. I knew it was going to happen, and I knew they were going to come our way, and they ended up coming our way. So I ended up deploying stop sticks. He had already been stop sticked a few times. I deployed stop sticks. He rammed a Monon unit because they were trying to do a rolling roadblock, which is like some 80s police shit that we don't do anymore. Like, what are you doing? Rolling roadblock, smacked into him, smacked into my brand new truck. I was fucking pissed. But what I did was I had a semi driver. I had traffic stop when I deployed my stop sticks, and he disregarded. So I yelled. I ran up there and opened his door and yelled at him. I was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And then through the sound of the semi, somehow I was able to hear the sirens. And I turn around, and I look, and I see the giant caravan of freaking squad cars coming, and I'm like, "Holy shit!" So I turn around. I said, "I need you to put your semi across the road diagonal. I need you to leave me out." I said, "Make sure your tires are past the fog line." And he goes, "All right, man." So he does. The great thing about that is that there was a ditch. So this guy had nowhere to go. To miss the semi, he had to go down into the ditch, and he had 3 tires at that point. So I got his 4th tire. He avoided the semi, went down in the ditch. There was a momentary pause. I ran to go check on the Monon officer because he had been hit. He swung his door open, gave me a thumbs up. I moved up to the other units that were on scene. I pushed them all up on line, which is what?
Infantry shit.
Yeah, right. These guys were completely fucking out of beside themselves. They're like, "This is the greatest tactics we ever seen in my life." Like, are they though? Really? I pushed everyone up on line, except this freaking Monon guy, dude. He runs all the way around to the front, right? So the suspect gets out and he's running at us, and this Monon officer's running up here. So of course I'm drawn out, and there's two other cops drawn out at that point, and they're all yelling at him, "Show me your hands, get on the ground." And I had already made a line on the ground, and I said, "If he crosses this line, I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to shoot you. You know what you're doing. You've pulled a knife." And the dude knew what he was doing, because what you couldn't see in the video, but what we could see, was he produced the knife with what we call an air grip. So blade pointed towards the sky, how someone would traditionally hold a knife. And then he transitioned quickly to earth grip, or reverse grip, facing towards the ground, which is what you use to stab someone with, with a lot of force. We could see that, and I saw him do that. So he didn't have any intentions to put a knife down. He didn't have any intentions to surrender. He knew what he was going to do. It was suicide by cop. Of course, at that time, we're still sitting there thinking, okay, is she dead? We don't know if the girl's dead in the car. We don't know. We know that he's running at us and he's not stopping. And as soon as he comes out of the camera, the in-car camera, it's a dead freaking sprint, dude. And he was running right at me. That time I was wearing a black vest and it said sheriff real big across the front in bright yellow letters. I mean, it was obnoxiously bright. And he was running right at me. So I put a line, I said, "If you cross this, you're done." And 7 feet, I pumped 4 into his heart and dropped him. And the Monon guy shot back towards us, and I took one of his rounds in the arm. a piece of his round in the arm. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I feel like I didn't know that.
Yeah, it deflected off the trailer and hit me. It was between my third and fourth round. It was like 1, 2, because it's pretty quick. It was 1, 2, 3, 4. But 1, 2, 3, 4. And I felt it. It was burning. And I'm like, ooh, what is that? And come to find out, that's what it was. So
how did that all play out?
Just pulled a little shard out of my arm.
Well, I mean, like after you dropped this dude.
So, it was one of those things that my first reaction, and I don't know why it was probably, as weird as it sounds, and I correlated it to this, was a lot of it was attention to detail. And I give that to the unit. It was the attention to detail. It was remembering things, because I can remember everything from that time. It wasn't a blur. None of these other officers knew how many rounds they fired. They had no idea where their rounds went. They couldn't tell you some of the things that were going on. For example, I look down at my watch, 6:27. I look over and I see a state police. I think it was a state police canine handler fighting his dog. His dog's going fucking ape shit from all these rounds that were fired. I looked back over this way. I see a semi driver opening the door, and he's like looking back, like what the fuck just happened? Because he's looking in the mirror. I mean, he watched the entire thing unfold. And of course, he's laying on the ground, fucking bleeding out at that point. So I run to the truck and grab a med kit, come back, and there's people already pushing up to administer aid. I threw the med bag down. I said, "Give me one. We got to go to the car." So a White County deputy, he said, "I'm on you." So we start to move, and it was one of those things. And maybe this is maybe this is too much. I don't know. It's one of those things. But in the heat of the moment, you just tried to stab me. Walking past him and seeing him roll his eyes at me, and I just looked him right in the eyes and said, "Fuck you." And I kept walking. And we approached the car, and we opened the door, and that seemed like the longest walk of my life, going from his body to the car. And I opened the door, and she was in there bawling. She was alive. He hadn't killed her. And you can, you see in the video, they get her out of the car, and it was one of those things that I was just kind of frozen in time. I had the door open, and I was just staring at the seat, because I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe she was alive. And then the adrenaline dump hit, and people are fucking everywhere. And, it was pretty insane. There's a midnight guy that I had him. It wasn't in any of the recordings that I have. I'd asked him to be en route, and he went off, and he eventually got on scene, and I remember kind of standing off, on the side of the road, and I'm seeing the flashing lights everywhere, and I look over, and he's just got this look on his face like, holy shit. He's just kind of looking around, and he's looking for me. He's looking around, and he finally sees me, and he just stops and freezes, because I'm the one that yelled shots fired on the radio, So he just kind of freezes. He walks over to me, and I was like, "What's up, Bob?" He goes, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." So we hung out, and the sheriff showed up, and everyone was like swarming on him, and he was super supportive throughout the entire thing. It was great. He gave me a hug, asked me if I was all right. I said, "Yeah." He asked me how many times I shot him. I told him. He asked me if he was dead. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Good." So, and then it was pretty smooth from there. State police showed up. They did their investigation. A trooper that I was friends with, he does some different details. He heard it, and he responded. He had called and he had asked someone who the officers were involved, and he heard that I was one of them, so he made sure to come. So his backstory, he had been involved in a shooting on that same highway a couple miles south of where mine was at. So he picked me up, and I stayed with him for 2 hours, because they kept me on scene for like 4.5 hours. They didn't know. They hadn't had a shooting in Pulaski County before. They hadn't had a shooting. They had one, but not a fatality. So he stayed on scene with me for a couple hours, and then I was finally able to leave. And 48 hours later, you do your initial interview, and you give your statement, and that was on a Tuesday, and I was cleared by, I think, the next Monday or Tuesday.
Adjusting my seat here. So then what followed that? It was like, I know some of this, but like, you just saved this girl, prevented there from being any further accidents or, with the whole semi maneuver and everything, and ended this dude. So, what are the details on like the record and all that stuff that you got later on?
So I mentioned earlier I went through that high-risk warrant course, and at the end of that, because that actually happened after my shooting, so I had 2 weeks off of work, and it was a couple months later we went through that course, and at the end of that course when we were getting our certificates, everyone got their certificates, and the instructor was kind of talking to us or whatever, and then he called my shift partner up, and he was handed a folder from the sheriff, and then he called me to the front, and I'm like, what the hell is this about? This is weird. So I go up there to the front, and he opens up the citation and starts reading it, and I got the Medal of Valor. It's the first person from our department to get a Medal of Valor.
It's like right there.
Right there. Yep. So, and what it also had happened was there was I believe it was the LaPorte County Commissioner that witnessed the entire thing. Because after this had happened too, and everything was calmed down, the girl was out, I started going to vehicles and asking people if they were okay. I talked to the semi driver. I was asking him, hey, are you good? Are there any deflections come through your cab? Are you good? He's like, yeah, I saw the whole thing, man. I'm glad you guys are all right. You did what you had to. He's a black dude from Chicago. He was. And he said, I'm glad you guys are all right. And I went to other cars and started checking on people, and one of them was the LaPorte County Commissioner, and he called and left a message for the sheriff. And long story short, somehow this got to Congresswoman Walorski, and I ended up getting a congressional record for it. So it was just a plaque that goes down in the congressional record. It'll be there forever, stating on this day I was involved with this, and all this happened, and courage and commitment and service, and thank you.
What has that been like? What is it like to be on a department where you're the first person to ever get the Medal of Valor? And for those who don't know, at least on the fire side of the public safety world, the Medal of Valor, well, really just the Medal of Valor in the public safety world is the equivalent to the military's Medal of Honor. So it's a pretty big fucking deal, to put it lightly. But typically, like, we have on every department that I've served on, there's been a Medal of Bravery, which is typically like you risk your life, you save somebody.
Right.
Typically, like, the Medal of Valor is like you gave your life in service of, trying to save somebody or something like that. So it's a really big deal.
Yeah. And it was one of those things, and even still to this day, I don't feel like I should have got that. I don't feel like that was the circumstance for it. And I went through mixed emotions. I did. I'll be honest with anyone about it. I'll tell anyone about it. There for a while, I thought that I got this for killing someone. I'm like, well, this is fucked up. And I knew that wasn't the case, but, your mind goes in different places. And I don't know, because I did my job. I did my job, and I don't feel like what I did deserved recognition, rewarding, an award. Nothing. I did my job. I did what and I said this in I was interviewed by a reporter. I did the job that I trained myself to do. Was to not hesitate, which was to have the clearest conscience that I could have and make the clearest decision making that I could, and I did. But I feel like it should have been left at that.
I think a lot of those awards are given to people who do their job, but they're not given to you because you just did your job. They're given to you because you did your job when it's a situation that's hard to do your job. And
That's true.
Where most people probably wouldn't have done their job or done it properly.
Either way, I mean, we can sit here and we can go back and forth on it for what it is. The matter of the fact is that I have it, I received it, I got it. I don't feel like it was warranted for it, but it is what it is, and I have it. And to answer your original question, what's it feel like to be the only guy in the department that has it? Nothing at all.
Has anything changed?
No.
Any relationships or the way people treat you or anything like that?
No. No, because it, I thought that there was maybe some animosity at one point between one guy that I worked with because of it, and there may have been, and I had heard rumors, that he was upset that I was the first one, but
how long has your department been around?
a long time.
Yeah, so to be the first one that gets it, because
Yeah.
my part-time department I work on, we don't have anybody. It's been around a long time.
Yeah.
We've never given it. So to be upset that there's somebody that was the first one, it's like, well, you probably weren't going to fucking get it either, dude.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it does a lot of times come down to just being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
But then doing the right thing is what comes down to you as an individual,
Yeah.
because he might have done something totally different. Anybody might have done several other things totally different. Who would have thought to put that semi in at that angle to force him down into the ditch? Most people probably wouldn't have even thought about that. Circumstances could have been totally different.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those things, and in that morning, I was shit hot. I was on it. I didn't think about it. I knew what I wanted. It came out, and it happened. It wasn't something I was like, fuck, how do I got to do this? How can I do this? It wasn't one of those things. It was like, this needs to go here. This needs to go here. You need to go here. And it just happened. So it played out, and I am also one of those people that I believe there was a divine intervention in that moment, and there was a hand guiding me in that point. So,
Are you typically a faith-driven or religious guy?
I am. A lot of people don't know it, or I may not portray it, but I absolutely am.
Are you an avid churchgoer?
No, I don't need to go to church to maintain my relationship with God. That's a fellowship.
Agreed. I haven't been to church in like a year and a half, but well, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, I have never personally met, except for you, anybody who's had a Medal of Valor, Medal of Honor, anything. So, I mean, it's
not the same as a Medal of Valor, or a Medal of Honor. Like, it's not even in the same fucking. You're comparing a Ferrari to a fucking Hyundai.
No, but but the concept of it.
Yeah.
It is the highest award for valor given from your department. That's it. There is no higher award. So somebody who stacks 10 bodies and then dies is getting the same award that you got.
Yeah.
And I understand that could like make you feel like you didn't do anything, but
oh yeah,
there's people.
That's what I'm saying.
But that's why it's so crazy, because people that get the Medal of Honor, whether you just jump on a grenade or you're John Basilone and you're stacking all of the bodies, and you get the same award. So one could argue the significance of one versus the other, but it doesn't matter.
Sugar Gordon,
Yeah,
the real hard dicks.
Yeah,
You
can go on and on about all the examples, but like I think our department, we have the Medal of Valor, and then we have the Medal of Bravery, and then there's one below that, and I can't remember it off the top of my head right now, but we've only had like one person ever get that one, the third award.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fire department, but we get a lot of fires.
Yeah.
And nothing has ever happened to warrant anybody getting anything above that. That guy got I think it was a fire life save, where he actually went in on a fire, pulled somebody out.
Pulled someone out.
Yeah.
See, that to me is that's above me.
But see, you saved that
My
girl's
eyes.
life potentially, and
Did
you
I,
potentially
though?
saved the life. But
You know.
you potentially saved the lives of your other
Yeah.
officers.
The other motoring public. I get it, but it's just one of those things. And when you're on the receiving end of something like that, it's one of those things that you're never going to sit there and say, "Yeah, I fucking deserve that."
Yeah, well, I think that's the big thing too. Is
You know what I mean?
Nothing that I've ever done, I've been like,
Where's my payment?
I think
I
think the people that deserve it the most are the ones who aren't going to feel like they deserve it. Just in the same way that the best leaders are typically the ones that don't want to be put in leadership positions.
Yeah.
I think that all those things go hand in hand. I think it has a big thing to do with humility. Now, you are the opposite of a humble individual.
Fuck. Confidence is key, bud.
With how big your ego is, I can barely fit myself in this room right now.
Do you want me to bring those over here? So the viewers can see those.
He's pointing at his excellence in competition badges, which are those like the only two things that I don't have that you have?
You're also not a rappel master. Do you have your German jump wings?
No, I got a shoots and sneer instead.
Okay. You don't have your German jump wings.
You want me to cut one of my chevrons off and give it to you?
That's because I got out.
Oh, man. Well, what's in store? Like, is there anything left that you want to achieve? Law enforcement, since your military career for the time being is done.
Shit. I just want to enjoy the job again.
Seems like you have been over the last few months.
There's moments that you do. But anymore, it's hard to enjoy a job when your entire field is under fire.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is what is it like to be a law enforcement officer in August of 2020 where COVID-19 is
A hoax.
out of control. The whole Black Lives Matter and Antifa movement are out of control.
Marxist movement.
And police homicides are far above average at this point in the year. And police retirements are at an all-time high because nobody wants to be a cop right now because you're, like, disliked by pieces of shit. But you're disliked like more than you have in recent memory, and you're targeted more than maybe ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what is it like to be a law enforcement officer in this culture?
I mean, to be completely honest with you, we still aren't seeing a lot of it where we're at because we're very rural.
Yeah.
But
you probably feel it.
It's coming in waves. It's you can see it. You can see it. People just they're so defiant anymore. It was one of those things that even I remember when I was a kid. I wouldn't necessarily say that I was afraid of the police. I don't want children to be afraid of me. That's not what I want. I don't want you to be afraid of me. I want you to know that I am here for you. I'm your help. I want to be your friend. But anymore, these people that are teaching their kids to hate us. They're teaching their kids words at a young age that they shouldn't speak. They shouldn't know of. They're teaching their kids that cops need to die. And that's not a black on white thing or a black on black thing or a white on white thing or black on cops or white on cops. That's a society problem. We have a big fucking problem right now. We are getting to the point that if we don't turn this around, a republic's not going to stand anymore. You're looking at two major wolves in sheep's clothing Marxist movement's happening right now. And it's being completely funded, and it's being accepted as the norm and okay. You know, don't get me wrong. I mean, everyone's got their right. Everyone's got their right to exercise their First Amendment rights. We all know this. You're not exercising your First Amendment rights, burning family businesses down, destroying people's property, beating people in the streets because you're not raising your fist to say her name.
It's becoming trendy, or the fringe thing, to hate cops and to just rebel against any kind of structure and authority.
Authority without law and order. Without law and order, the society will crumble. And the biggest thing I hate is to hear that, you know, cops are out here, they're just out here to get us. They're out here to fuck everyone over. No, we're not. We're here to make sure that the good people have good lives.
Like the most tense interaction I've had with a law enforcement officer, which was only tense because of like the way that I had set the situation up for myself. I've never had a bad altercation. Yeah, I'm a white dude, but there's a situation where I was pulled over for my registration being expired, and I had an AR-15 in my passenger seat, and my license was also in my passenger seat. My wallet was there, my phone was there, which is where my insurance is at, and my registration is in the glove compartment. So I can't get to any of my shit without reaching over towards a firearm. Now, this dude was super cool. I do have veterans plates on. But, you know, he asked, hey, do you know why I pulled you over? It's because your registration, blah, blah, blah. Can I see your license, registration, and proof of insurance? And I said, well, all of that is over there. And right. I don't want to reach over there because that firearm's right there. Actually, the very first thing that he said was, I see you have a firearm right there. I was like, yes, sir. And then
Great
he said,
observation, Captain Obvious.
Yeah. And he said, do you have any other firearms in the car? And I don't think I have to tell him in this state. But that goes a long way.
Sure.
So I said, yeah, I have a Glock under my seat right now. And he was like, okay. Didn't dwell on it, didn't freak out about it, just said, can I see your license, registration, proof of insurance? I just said, it's all over there. I can't get to it without reaching towards that weapon. And he said, all right, well, I'll just have you get out of the car. Now, I was in a really big fucking rush at the moment. This tuxedo place is about to close down that I had to pick up my tux because I was the best man in a wedding that was going on in like 2 hours.
Right.
And I was about to not have a tux for this wedding. And so I was kind of in a panic, but you know, he just said, I'm just going to run your stuff real quick. I didn't know my license or my registration was out of date, but you know, he was just like, I'm not going to give you a ticket for this. I'm just giving you a heads up. All your stuff is fine. But you know, he decided to do whatever you guys do in your cars, even when you know that you're giving people a warning or whatever. I don't know what takes 5 or 10 minutes, but
dispatch. Dispatch.
But yeah, he just went and did his thing, and then he let me go on my way.
And for all the people that are sitting there saying, "Oh, well, you could run it on MDT, internet service,"
but there's an opportunity. You know, that could have been taken in a much worse way. But as long as you're just respectful,
yeah.
Even times where I've been caught speeding, going 20 over the speed limit, if a cop asks you why you're going so fast, and I've just been like, well, I didn't know you were there. They typically will chuckle and give me a warning.
Probably because I'm in a fucking hurry. You know? Nah,
like, wow.
You know what? One of my favorite things is to have people tell me, like, hey, I just want you to know I do have a firearm in the vehicle, or if I see one, or like, hey, I'm sure you saw my firearm in the vehicle. Awesome. Thanks for supporting the Second Amendment.
But just
that's my thing. That's what I tell people. Like,
just that gesture of respect, though, that they're going to tell you.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, for these people, they get on these kicks. It's like, oh, you shouldn't tell the cops that. They don't need to fucking know that. Okay, no, I don't need to know your business. But for you to tell me that is also a signature for me to catch on and like, hey, I'm not a threat to you. You know, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know who we're walking up on. You don't fucking know. Especially if it's coming out of state.
Especially these days.
Yeah.
How many dudes have been walking up and just gotten popped, like,
yeah,
as they're walking up because you can't see because that, what is that, the B-frame bar or whatever?
B-pillar.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been guys shot in their own PD parking lots. Right in the head. Guys walk up. Poof. Walk away. Dead. Right in the head. Yeah.
So you really don't know what you're walking up on.
So
but
it's
if
one
you
of those
can
things, it's one of those things, like, you'd never know. And people, why do they always got to be dicks? Why do you got to be so, why do they got to be so high-strung? We don't fucking know. We got families to go home to, too. Yeah, well, you volunteer for this job. No one's making you do it. You're goddamn right, because if no one does it, then there ain't going to be any law and order in this country. And you're probably not going to exist anymore.
But if you think about walking up, just the angle and the view that you're going to have walking up on the driver's side of a vehicle, and as you get to a point where you can actually see into the driver's side window, there could be a barrel in your face.
Yeah, my worst like pet peeve or whatever is rolling up on a vehicle and the driver's windows down. They got blacked out windows, and the back windows are up. Like, no, roll your back window down. Because for some reason, I always have it in my head. There's gonna be a 12 gauge sitting right there, and that just sucks. Like that just be shitty.
But yeah, I just feel like
happens. It happens.
If you can initiate respect,
yeah,
the cop's gonna appreciate that. And I've gotten a ticket once for it was a speed trap, and
no such thing.
That douche was giving me a ticket either way.
It's not a speed trap though. Speed traps don't exist.
He was sitting right behind a speed limit sign that dropped the speed limit 20 miles an hour.
It's not a speed
This
trap.
is in Dayton, Ohio. The speed limit went from 70 to 50.
I don't know about Ohio. In Indiana, speed traps are not a thing. They don't exist.
Went from 70 to 50. He was right behind the speed limit sign, and I was going like 76. Pulled me over going 26 over. Gave me a ticket. I was like, I don't think I wasn't going to get a ticket for that if you actually pulled me over right now.
You said it was Ohio?
Yeah.
State trooper?
Right out of Dayton, I don't remember.
It's probably state trooper. They're dicks.
Yeah.
They're probably right, other cops.
But every other time that I've been pulled over, I've tried to be as respectful as possible, and I've always gotten let off.
Sure.
I feel like if you initiate that respect, that cop is going to appreciate it, especially because it's like, damn, this guy's actually nice to me. Most people are fucking assholes. Okay.
Yeah. Give respect to get it.
So it's
that's,
not that
that's
hard.
the basic principle in fucking life.
It's not that hard.
We're still people.
If I was a cop and I got you going like 13, 14 over, but you're super respectful and apologetic, I'm not going to give you a ticket.
I used to be one of those guys that it was like, when I worked in my first county or whatever, just we had a lot of highways and I worked a lot of accidents. You always hear the whatever, you're fine, whatever, you're mine. My thing was 14, you're fine, 15, you're mine. But anymore, it's just one of those things, like, unless you're being an idiot, I mean, I might stop you and talk to you, but you gotta be an asshole or an idiot for me to write you a ticket anymore. It's just how it is.
Because it's officer discretion.
Oh yeah.
So if you're going 5 over and you get a ticket, maybe you should reevaluate yourself.
If you get a ticket for 5 miles over the speed limit, you were being an asshole. You were being a dickhead. Guarantee it.
There's probably more paperwork than it's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If I'm walking up to a car and you're yelling at me before I get to the car, we've got problems.
You get a ticket.
You're probably getting a ticket. Yeah.
Even if it's not.
Unless you're in distress and you need my help and you're yelling at me, calling me a piece of shit, a motherfucker. Like, yeah, okay, license registration. I'm going to get you out of here. Ticket.
Because it's like, no matter how much the ticket's worth, it's almost worth it to spite them at that point.
It's one of those things that I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a spite thing, because when it comes down to it, I mean, it's you still broke the law. You still broke the law. It's my discretion whether I want to enforce that law at that point in time, or if I want to warn you for that. My thought process behind it is I've caught you breaking the law. I'm coming up to have a talk with you about breaking the law, depending on what the severity is of it. Because if it's severe enough, I'm probably not going to be talking to you about it. It's probably going to be what it is, and you're going to get it, and that's going to be it. I'm coming to talk to you at this point. And if you're motherfucking me before I even get up there to the car, okay, we're not going to have a talk. I'm going to enforce it, and you're going to leave. And that's it. So I just didn't give you the pleasantries that you probably would have expected from me at that point. You know? Don't be a dick. Don't be a dick. We're people. Like, we're just doing a job. We're just trying to go home. We just want to go home.
Well, I don't know how long I've been doing this, but if you want to give an update on where you're at now as far as like family life. I know when you're getting out of the Army, a big motivation was your family life. I know there's a certain point in time where you're kind of like, I don't know if depressed is the right word, but I'm going to use it for lack of a better one. Trying to have kids, but having issues, and then having a lot of struggles with work in the Army, and those kind of schedules clashing with each other. Yeah. And a lot of other contributing factors. I don't want to go too deep into your business, but now, a year later, you have a new baby. Your career seems like it's going better than it has. Seems like your marriage is doing great, and seems like since you got out of the Army, not saying that this is why, but since you got out of the Army, your life has gotten a lot better. So, just maybe some of those dudes that haven't checked in with you since you got out of the unit, maybe they'll see this. So, give them an update.
Yeah, it was kind of a surreal thing when I got out. I was like, I can't believe I'm done. I'm finally done. And I work so much anyways, between my full-time job, part-time job, and then, I had the military, and it was one of those things that I just filled the void with the military with my part-time job, so just that kind of kept going. But no, it's been great. I've continued training. I've continued, my shooting, and I'm working, and my baby's great. She's it's awesome when I come home from work in the mornings and I get to get her out of her crib and she smiles as soon as she wakes up, opens her eyes, she fucking smiles, and that's like, yeah, this is the reason for life right here, bud. You just wait. So, wife, she's great. She balances everything and she works hard, and we just keep pushing forward. Just keep pushing forward and trying to make the best lives for us that I can, and I got no complaints. So as of right now, no, I'm not coming back. The worst comes back, we may talk. Steve-O?
The lurch comes back, hit you up. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you may hit me up. We'll see.
Your life may get to a point where it's just like your new baseline is just good and not like struggling.
Yeah.
And you find yourself at a point where it's convenient and good for you to come back. But that's what I was telling you at the time, was just get out.
I had to do me, and it was one of those things that I've been through quite a bit, and this is not my first marriage, and I was bound and determined that this one's going to work. And if I can eliminate any factors that are going to play into it not working, I'm going to throw them away, right the fuck away. And that's what I did. I'm trying to be the best father. More importantly, I'm trying to be the best husband that I can. So,
I think at that moment, which is what I was telling you to do, was like, the Army will always be here if you decide to come back.
Yeah.
The Army's always going to be there to take you back. Your family and your wife might not be.
That's a fact.
So,
that's a fact.
Get out, take care of your family, get your career squared away. And if 5 years from now you decide that you want to come back in because your life is at this awesome position.
Fuck.
We got some old broke people in the unit though.
Yeah.
Then you can come back, and but then do it purely because you want to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
And not because feel some obligation or like you need to be there for anything, but you're doing it for yourself. And at a point where everything else in your life is completely taken care of. And maybe that'll happen, maybe that won't happen.
Yeah.
But I know for me, a year after I was out, like, I miss this is a good quote that the dude from the last episode, Derek, used, that I miss the clowns, but I don't miss the circus.
I don't think that could be any more true.
Yeah. But
because I always think about the boys.
Sometimes I'll put up with the circus just to be with the clowns for a little bit. Especially if you're only dealing with one for a day or two at a time.
Yeah.
But for you, I think you did the right thing. I'm glad you did it. I want you to remember that I was the only fucking person in the unit telling you to do that.
Yeah, you were.
So
You were.
you remember that when you're rubbing your EIC badges in my face.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to do this. Today was awesome.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have one of our next few guests lined up.
Yeah, you will.
And yeah, right on, man.
Right.
Let's drink more now that
You
we
got
don't have to be responsible for this shit.
Keep shooting.